Welcome to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by thesoberclub.com. I'm Janie Lee Grace. This is for you if you've quit the booze or you'd like to, or maybe you're just sober curious. I'll bring you tips and motivation without any judgment, and there'll be inspiration from experts, quit-lit authors, and sober heroes. Hi, and welcome to the podcast. I hope you're well and you're having a good summer, as much as we can. So it's been a really interesting week. There's been a lot in the press, as I'm sure you've seen, around alcohol. There was a very interesting report about Guinness, Guinness Zero, and how unbelievably well that's doing. There was another really interesting bit of press about drinks industries actually panicking a bit about the lack of sales because so many people are turning to alcohol-free options. Well, you know, that'll get them moving then, won't it? Get them reinventing themselves. But it's also been a really interesting week with some fantastic press in the mainstream about sober coaches. I love the way it's hitting the mainstream because, you know, however many years ago, I've said it so many times, I had no idea that it was a thing. I had no idea that choosing to be sober, that living your best life without alcohol was a thing. I really thought that unless you were at rock bottom and you clearly needed rehab, there was nothing else. There was nothing in between. So, and I certainly would never have thought of such a thing as a sober coach. I had no idea it existed. So how brilliant that it's hitting the mainstream. And there was a great piece in the iPaper last weekend with a journalist called Judy Cogan, who wanted to have a sober summer. And she got in contact and she worked with one of the coaches that I trained, Lucy. And they did a fantastic piece together. Judy's piece was absolutely brilliant. Super proud of Lucy, who I trained in my sober coach training, because she really represented our style of the holistic approach really well. And Judy actually messaged me to say I'm having a sober festival weekend, and it's just amazing waking up sober. So, you know, it can be done. It was just brilliant to see it there in the mainstream, and it actually prompted some interesting discussions, I think, around sober coaching and around whether or not you need a coach. And of course, you know, it's how long is a piece of string question. There's absolutely no doubt that when you do work with a coach, you can get to where you want to be quicker, undoubtedly. Because as coaches, you know, as I said I did a piece for Substack recently, but we don't try and fix you. The idea is not that we can fix you, so you're kind of handing over your power. Not at all. But what we can do is just help you, give you a bit of a leg up, hold the vision for you, support you, encourage you. While you actually find the answers from within. So, you know, there's an awful lot that you have to do, but, you know, it's good stuff. It really is. And there's no doubt that when you work with someone who helps facilitate all of that, you can get to where you want to be, much more quickly and with a lot less angst, hopefully. But you know where to find me if you want a coach. You know where to find the coaches that I've trained. Just go to thesoberclub.com. And of course, if you want to train to be a coach, then get in touch. But anyway, so that's the power of a good coach, and that's been across the media. And then the other really lovely thing this week that I just want to pick up on is there's been a few really lovely celebrations within the Sober Club. Not least, we're going to be talking about our 5th birthday soon. But one of our Sober Club members posted this post, and she said, "I've reached 500 alcohol-free days after struggling for absolutely years, wanting desperately to stop. Mondays were the day that I just never could get going again. I could never get past Friday evening. Janie's podcast was the best thing to have happened to me, and all the inspiration received there, and eventually joining the Sober Club and receiving yet more inspiration. So beginners, mid-termers and long-termers, we're the lucky ones, gaining so much more from the advantages of this lifestyle." I thought, well, doesn't that really sum it up just beautifully? We really are the lucky ones. We really are. It just drives me bonkers when I read, you know, these people who whinge about needing, in inverted commas, to be sober, the Adeles of this world. No, actually, you're lucky. You are lucky if you've got to this point. How fantastic. Do the work, right? Put the work in and gather all the benefits, because when you lay those foundations of sobriety, then you can do all the other pieces. Then you can become, you know, your best self, live your best life. It was great to be at the Essex Recovery Festival last weekend I did a little chat with Michael from Happy Without the Hooch. We just did a chat around holistic sobriety, really. We were looking at self-care. We were looking at some of the pieces that are fundamental to the sober coach training that I offer, because it's never only about not drinking. Of course, we have to start with that. Of course, that's the piece that has to lay the foundations. But once you're on that path, it's about focusing on all the other pieces that are going to support that. So, the self-care piece, the good nutrition, which is absolutely such a massive part of it and so often forgotten. The power of connection is absolutely key. And we looked at some of these pieces, and it was really interesting because some of the people there had been sober for a while. Some were fairly new to sobriety. But I think for some of them, it was the first time they'd considered that there were pieces they could do to support themselves. And actually, it was great to kind of go over some of this stuff. I mean, none of us know what we've not encountered yet. And if you are early days and you don't yet know some of the basics around nutrition, well, come and join us in the Sober Club. Get clued in. Listen to some of my podcasts. Come and watch some of the content, because that is such a basic way of supporting what's going on for you in the early weeks of sobriety. And further down the line, there was one woman at the event at the weekend who had actually been sober for quite a long time, but hadn't done the nutrition piece, and recognized that she was, despite not drinking, she was still feeling kind of lacking in energy, not sleeping very well, feeling really quite bloated, just lots of things not as great as perhaps they could be. And it absolutely comes down to the nutrition. We've got to do those basics. I mean, I know it sounds really cliched and ridiculous, but if you've got a supercar, it might look fabulous, but if you don't put the right fuel into it, then ain't going to go, is it? And it's the same thing. We've got to look after ourselves. We've got to get those basics right. And in the early weeks of sobriety, we need really good nutrition, building blocks, those amino acids, those really good fats, all the good protein. We really need that to support those early weeks of sobriety. So it was great to be able to do that chat at the Essex Recovery Festival. It's a great event. Looking forward to next year's already. And while we're talking events, Saturday, 24th of August, there's something that's going to be really fun in Felixstowe, so literally right by the sea. How fantastic. Bash at the beach. It's going to be really good. So I'm going to pop up there and speak as well. There's lots of good stuff going on. So if you go to thesoberclub.com, click on events, then we'll make sure we put the info there. And then, of course, we must talk about the Sober Club's 5th birthday. So we've teamed up with Club Claritee because, they just do fantastic events. That's what they do. They do it brilliantly. I'm going to be having another chat with Alex coming up soon about the event that we're doing together. But Club Claritee are good at this. So I figured, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to collaborate with Alex. So we're doing a kind of a joint venture, a Club Claritee and Sober Club 5th birthday party. God, I can't believe it, 5 years. And that's going to be Wednesday, the 18th of September at the iconic venue hotel in London, in Wardour Street. It would be fantastic to see you there. It's not expensive. I think tickets are about a tenner, something like that. And it's going to be amazing. So again, come over to thesoberclub.com, click on events there, click on the Sober Club 5th birthday. That will take you through to an Eventbrite link. There are a couple of events because there's Club Claritee's other stuff. But if you'd like to join us for our one, then please do. Please click on the event that says Wednesday, 18th of September. It might not have a whole load of stuff about the Sober Club in there yet because we haven't updated it all. But that's the one you need. Wednesday, 18th of September. For the Sober Club's 5th birthday. You don't have to be a member. It's fine. If you're, if you listen to the podcast, feel free to come and join us. It would be absolutely great. But of course, if you want to join us in the Sober Club, then even better, because, there's just so much stuff there. There's so much amazing exclusive content. We've got our private Facebook group. We've got our course, Get the Buzz Without the Booze. We've got our regular Zoom meetups. So it's all there. And we'd love to have you. And if you don't like it, you can always leave. It's not expensive. It's high value. I mean, I would say that, wouldn't I? If that doesn't resonate, but you want to support this work, then I think you can go to Buy Me a Coffee. It's buymeacoffee.com/Janie Lee Grace. So that's all the kind of admin out the way for now anyway. We've got other events coming up, but I'll tell you about those later. So this week, I thought it'd be nice to give you another chance to hear some clips of some episodes. You know, I do this from time to time. I kind of go back and I listen to bits of previous podcast episodes. As you know, I've got a huge number to choose from now. And, you know, nobody can remember everything. And the really interesting thing also, I think, is that when you listen to something that you've listened to before, you might remember it. You might recall that you heard it before, but it always lands differently. It lands differently every time because you're in a different place and because you might be hearing something that just didn't kind of go in before. So I make no apology for giving a rerun of these guests. So what I picked out to do a little clips from my podcast with Jason Vale, Juice Master. Absolutely love Jason's work. He wrote one of the earliest Quitlet books, Kick the Drink Easily. Came out absolutely ages ago. I actually stopped drinking after reading that book, interestingly enough, for a fairly long time because it completely kind of NLP'd me into stopping, and I did. Sadly, I went back again because I hadn't done all the other stuff that we talk about, the nutrition, the self-care, the connection. But it's still a very powerful book, and of course, that book was really very much a forerunner to other books that came after it, such as Annie Grace's book and various others. So anyways, Jason Vale, going to get to hear a clip with Jason. Denise Welsh, who wrote the foreword to my book, she wrote the foreword to Happy, Healthy, Sober. I think when I introduce Denise in this clip, I'll probably say that my book is a year old. Of course it isn't, it's older than that now, but you know, bear with me. And then there's another chance to hear a clip from an interview with Catherine Gray, author of Unexpected Joy of Being Sober. And we're having, in this little clip, we're having a chat for her book, Sunshine Warm Sober. So that's one of her more recent books. Of course, she now has her absolutely fantastic novel out as well. So I'm a huge fan of Catherine. And then there's a chance to hear a little clip from Dr. David Hamilton. Now, again, I've interviewed David several times. This particular clip that I've picked out is from when I was talking to David about his book, Why Woo Woo Works. Fantastic little clip from David. Again, of course, he has a more recent book, and I interviewed David just a while ago. So another chance to go back and hear that. So bunch of clips, and I really hope you enjoy them. And I'll give you a reminder of some of those dates after. If you're not in the UK, you don't know who Denise Welsh is. She's a hugely successful actress, and she's been in many very famous things in the UK, not least some soap operas. She's a real character, and she's been so open about her own struggles with mental health issues, with depression, and her own issues with alcohol. She's really helped a huge number of people, I think, by just bringing this stuff right out into the mainstream. So Denise wrote the foreword for my book, and I'm hugely grateful to her for that. But I've also had her as a podcast guest. So here's a clip with Denise. I just wonder whether you can give us any, and this sounds very flippant in the light of everything we've spoken about, but what would you suggest that people do who do suffer from depression on whatever level? You know, are there some things that you would recommend people putting in place? You know, what are the strategies that everyone can do? I mean, does walking in nature make a difference? Does the right nutrition make a difference? What about exercise? Are there any of those lifestyle things that can help?
All of those things are things that we should all be doing.
Yeah.
And those things help, I think, how long the unwelcome visitor stays. Okay. However, once depression is in, there is no amount of talking, walking, eating, that's gone. What you have to do is my book is called Depression and How I Survive It. And it's about surviving the visits and loving the times in between. So in the good times in between, try to eat well and try to get, even if it's just a walk, you know, and if you are a sufferer, try to take alcohol out of your life if you can. It is the most wonderful life without alcohol.
Yeah.
I know I had Lincoln, and I do know that is easier with somebody. The other thing is, when I was first poorly, there was nothing, as I say, except paragraphs like this in magazines. Now we have Google, and we can Google depression help, and there will be a group, a support group, a community, a person, because I know that getting professional help sometimes in the mental health system is hard, and now harder, but there will be somebody who will listen. And if you find that your GP or your family don't, look further afield.
Yeah.
Please don't think that you have anything to do with getting this illness. It's an illness like any other, and the unwelcome visitor always leaves.
The lovely Denise Welsh. And thanks again, Denise, for doing the foreword for the book. And I'm sure you've heard me mention so many times how much I love my Quit Lit, and how, in the early stages, it was a lifeline for me. It really was, immersing myself in that, stuff in the books that just gave me optimism, that just gave me hope. The memoirs, which were sometimes hard hitting, and then just being able to sort of catch sight of that better life. And I think that's what it's all about, really. I was mentioning that I'm in the middle of or just started an accountability program with a group of clients, and really so much of the conversation that we've been having is around how do we hold on to the commitment that we've made. And, partly it's the logic. So partly it's knowing that alcohol is really bad for you. We need to really know it in our gut. This is where, Annie Grace and William Porter are so brilliant, because they've really nailed that piece. And William's written something in my book as well. So, they've really nailed that logic piece, that why alcohol is so unbelievably bad for us. Let's not sugarcoat it ever. So that piece is really good for our commitment. But of course, perhaps even more important than that is the emotional side of it. So it's the motivation, because ultimately, if we don't feel that we're doing the right thing for us at the time, we'll just, cave and take a drink, irrespective of what we know logically, because that phrase, emotions, not logic, will inspire action. So we have to get the logic and the emotional piece working together. And one of the best ways to do that is to just have a vision, have a goal, have something you're aiming towards, and really be able to see yourself in this fabulous new way. How amazing is your life going to be, when you've ditched the booze? And one of the members of our group has got herself a little sticker chart, and she's planning all of these rewards, healthy self-care treats for herself, when she reaches certain milestones, and really being able to visualize what life's going to be like as you move forward. Because, there sure has been some amazing transformations. I've mentioned it so many times, but in the Sober Club, there's just been people who have done things they never would have even dream that they could do. It was a distant dream that they were going to start a business or travel or move to a different part of the country or move abroad or whatever it is, in their life. Just stuff that they didn't have the mojo, didn't have the energy to do before. But once you've ditched the booze, it frees up time and it makes you feel so much clearer. And, it's that piece of starting to like yourself a little bit. That makes, all the difference in the world. Anyways, where was I? Yeah. So, as I say, Quit Lit books made a massive difference to me. After Claire Pooley's book, the next one I read was The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober by Catherine Gray. I mean, worth it for the name alone. Man, what a title. And I really have come to discover, the unexpected joy. I really have. I don't think I ever used to appreciate little things before. So The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober was just a game changer, I think, for so many people. And then I read Catherine's next book, The Unexpected Joy of Being Single, and then The Unexpected Joy of the Ordinary, all fantastic books. She's just such a beautiful writer. So I was really chuffed to get to interview Catherine.
That's of course not to say that we don't get the munchies for sugar in the early weeks, some of us, and we do start doing other things, but that doesn't mean that that's going to happen forever. I think it's a case of, as you said, I love the way you described the fact that you're a toddler in those early weeks and months. You really are finding your feet. And of course, you're going to have extra time on your hands and not know what to do with yourself. And your chemical, the neurochemicals are all over the shop. So of course, you're going to reach for sugar or whatever. But over time, and that's what's so lovely about, your book, you're throwing this forward in time. So you're being really realistic about how things pan out when you feel just so much more stable. I think that's a word that so often comes up for me. I'm so much more stable than I was.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel safe. That was a key theme in the book, that I finally feel safe within myself and in my relationships and from alcohol. And it's just such a luxurious place to find myself.
Yeah, there's a little section on boundaries, isn't there, which is great.
Yeah, boundaries. Oh my gosh, I don't know what your relationship's been like with boundaries.
Oh, but terrible in the past. Terrible.
Yeah, I literally only learned how to do them about 2 years ago.
I actually thought that setting boundaries meant you were just a really arsey person.
Yeah, me too. I would bitch about people who set boundaries with me. I'd be like, how dare they say no to my unreasonable request? How dare they not reply to my unsolicited email asking them for a favor? It just is. But the thing is, it's very common that people who don't have boundaries themselves, so I was very much the type that would pretty much do anything you asked me to do if you asked me to do it. They are the people who expect other people to say yes to everything. So it's the boundaryless who get irate when we set boundaries with them. So I think that's important to remember, to have that compassion, because it's just that they're not there yet, and they don't know what boundaries are, and they don't know that they're healthy. Now when people say no to me, I literally feel like high-fiving them.
Yes.
I'm like, nice boundaries. And you can tell when somebody is when they've really gone through this process, and that they're healthy and secure and in all of this too, because they will respond to your no with, oh my God, absolutely no worries, just thought I'd ask, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And that it's not damaged the relationship, and they're not going away to have a bitching session about you because you said no.
Yeah, totally.
But it's so important in recovery, or whatever you call it, in staying sober, I've found, because if you don't set boundaries, you become cannibalized with resentment over time, because your energy and your day and your effort and your work schedule is not your own. You just give it to other people all the time. And so then you don't have enough time for yourself, or time to rest, or money, or whatever it is that you need, because you're just giving it away all the time.
Yeah.
And obviously give away some of it, give away maybe half of it, but keep enough for yourself.
Well, self-care is just the thing we have to learn. I mean, I had no idea what it meant till I got sober. I thought, self-care is like those rich women that go to spas and lunch the whole time. I had no idea what it meant. For me, my self-care was a glass of wine. So I had no idea what it really meant.
Oh my God, I really identify with that. And I wonder if it's something that the younger generations are just much more au fait with. They've often been parented in a way where a no isn't the worst thing you can say to a parent.
I think that's true.
Yeah, so I was definitely parented in the way that you did not say no to superior, people in your family, and you did not say no to work colleagues either, because I was in a very competitive industry like you. So you just had to say yes to everything to A, get people to like you, continue to like you, and B, get ahead.
Yeah.
And so I just carried this one way too far, and it's something that I still struggle with to this day.
Thank you, Catherine. And then bringing us sort of fairly up to date to an interview that I did not too long ago is with Dr. David Hamilton. Now, I've known David for so many years. He's a fellow Hay House author. I've heard him speak. We've been on the same bill a lot of times. I love what he does, and this new book, particularly Why Woo Woo Works, it's just fabulous that it actually reveals the scientific piece, because it is really easy to just dismiss anything that you don't quite understand as woo-woo and nonsense. But usually it's exactly that. It's just because you don't really understand it. And as most of you know, in the Sober Club, I love introducing a bit of woo-woo. We do have all the kind of practical stuff in there. There's huge amounts of stuff around nutrition and fitness and mindset and meditation and well-being, and obviously the nitty-gritty of actually ditching the booze and staying sober and finding your purpose and being creative. But then there's also what some people would call totally woo-woo stuff. I bring in an angel expert, Beverly Densham. He's going to be a guest on the podcast, by the way. Joe Soley has done stuff on numerology for us. I had Yakov Darling Khan doing a fabulous movement meditation. We've got lots of amazing meditations. I'm going to be bringing in someone to talk about crystals. So yeah, I'm fully immersed in the woo-woo, but it's just great to have David explain a bit of this to us. So I thought you might enjoy hearing another clip. So before we get into the book, just give us a little bit of your kind of potted history for anyone who hasn't come across your work.
Yeah, I worked as an R&D scientist in a really big pharmaceutical company, really building drugs for heart disease and cancer. I say building drugs. I was what you call an organic chemist, which is like an adult who plays Lego. But instead of using, plastic building blocks to assemble a variety of shapes, you use atomic building blocks. But the idea is the same. It's like Lego. And I used to literally build atomically what became, heart medicines and cancer medicines. But I really was more intrigued by the placebo effect. And I started to study it in my spare time when I worked in the industry. At the time, this was, I started working in the pharmaceutical industry in the late 90s, and the mind-body connection was not understood very well at all. Yeah. And so when I started to suggest to my colleagues that there could be some mind-body connection that explained the placebo effect, they all used to laugh, call it quackery. I mean, not unkindly, we were all just friends, but the way friends banter, it's all quackery and all that kind of stuff, because nobody understood it. So we just assumed, and this is actually a common theme through all perception of woo-woo. We just assumed, that, or my colleagues assumed, that people who responded to placebo were just going to get better anyway. But I began to research it and realized that there was actually something going on. And it turned out even then, there was lots of available science, but we just didn't know that. And I find, and one of my motivations behind the book is so many people refer to things as woo-woo, sometimes even pseudoscience, not because they're speaking from a position of knowledge and authority, and they can rightly say, that's woo-woo or pseudoscience. Most of the time you find it's because they're not experts at all and actually really don't know that there is available science and there is available philosophical thought. And so I thought, I'm just going to the best of my ability, pull a lot of that together and at least give people who do practice these kind of things a wee bit of, backing to say there is a lot of stuff there. And for people who are skeptical, to say, look, before you be skeptical, at least look at some of the data and you'll see that maybe, we shouldn't really be calling these things woo-woo after all, because the definition of woo-woo really is unconventional beliefs regarding as having little or no scientific data.
Exactly. It's very derogatory, isn't it?
It's very, very derogatory.
Yeah. And I mean, we're all so used to being, sort of laughed at and being called woo-woo. But as you say, there is so much science, behind all of this stuff. Yeah. So where did you kind of start when you were thinking about the book, about what you would include, about, were there aspects of this that came as a bit of a surprise to you when you actually did a bit more digging deep?
Yeah. I mean, I started in what I call the lower end of woo-woo. I go from the lower end to the high end.
Go on then, give us a benchmark. Because I'm probably at all ends.
Well, me too, actually.
Or at least I have been there over the years. Let's put it that way.
Well, I know exactly what you mean. I kind of flip between all three. But the lower end, I call it things like the impact of thoughts and emotions on your brain on your physiology, placebo effect, meditation, even things like how emotions can, trapped emotion can have an impact by almost storing up charge in the nervous system in the context of trauma, lower end of woo-woo, meaning at least some people are aware that there probably is research, even though most people don't know about it. So I gathered a lot of that. Then moving into things like Reiki and crystals, I call them kind of mid-range, and the idea that perception shapes reality, and show that there's a heck of a lot of science available, either trial data or at least show why these things might work for us. Moving into the higher end, like psi, ESP, telepathy, prayer, all that kind of stuff, even law of attraction, and sketched a whole basis of science. To answer your question, what was most surprising to me was just how much science there was that could explain how crystals work.
Interesting.
That was, for me, the most surprising. In fact, so much so that it's the biggest chapter. I had to take out about 3. It was too long, and you can't have a chapter that takes longer than an hour to read for audiobooks. Otherwise, Audible and other things, they just snap it over into 2 chapters and it spoils the flow. So you're really limited in the number of words. So I literally had to chop off.
So give us a bit more detail on that then. What should we be looking for crystals? What can we all benefit from with crystals?
In terms of crystals, there's actually 3 different ways. Now, first of all, there isn't any scientific studies on crystals because, to be honest, most academics wouldn't touch the subject anyway. That doesn't mean that there's nothing there. They just probably wouldn't touch it for the sake of their careers. I know what that's like. There's certain subject I would have avoided in the past as well for the sake of people, almost ridiculing. And so, but what there is though, is lots of research that would suggest why they might work for us. Let me give you an example of where I'm coming from. So in the Buddhist teaching of Dzogchen, 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 they often use a clear crystal. The teachers use a clear crystal.
Like a quartz crystal?
Like a clear quartz. So this is a citrine I've got here, but a clear quartz. Now, what the clarity of the quartz does is it serves as what's called a mental representation. Now, in cognitive psychology, that's a really well-known area of research. So by mental representation, what I mean is that the teachers of Dzogchen use that as a focal point for the practitioners, and it gives them something to focus on because the clarity of the crystal represents to them the clarity and the clear state of mind and being that one wishes to attain. So it becomes a focal point, something to focus on. So the moment by holding the crystal, even by having it in your visual field, and you see the clarity of it, your mind becomes less muddled and fudgy because you keep looking at it and seeing it, and that reminds you, I have to attain a clear state of being. So it's like a constant reminder. Now, common sense tells you having a constant reminder of a goal is going to help you achieve that goal.
So let me know if you've got any other favourite podcasts that you'd like me to share some clips from. It's always great to know what your favourites are. It's not always the most famous people or the top authors. Sometimes it's just an expert or a Sober Club member or someone who's come on the podcast, but something they've said has just really resonated. And I love hearing about that. So please drop me a line if there's any podcast you specifically remember or really enjoyed. I'd really appreciate that. Don't forget, you can reach out. I really, really want you to tell someone if you're doing this. If you're early days and you're just starting out on this and you're thinking, no, I'm not going to join the Sober Club. I don't want to do anything formal. That doesn't feel right for me. I don't want to go and meet people. None of that feels good. Then, okay. Just drop me a message. Okay, drop me a message on social media. I will do my absolute best to reply if I can. I'm actually really good at getting back to messages. I'll do my best. So follow me on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, Twitter, @Jania Lee Grace, or you can just go via the Sober Club and send me a message there and I'll respond to you if I can. It's so important that you tell someone, and much better that you tell someone who is going to become your cheerleader. That's what we do for each other in the Sober Club. We become cheerleaders for you. So, when you just tell your partner or your best friend or your mum, it's not quite the same. They might, love you lots and they might want to be supportive. But if they're not in the same space, if they've not been there, done it, got the t-shirt, there's going to be lots of nuances of this where they're not able to necessarily give you all of the support you need. So tell someone, make it a thing, hold yourself accountable, and then have that extra layer of accountability. So message me at Janie Lee Grace. And if you're really, really struggling, always reach out for support and help. There's plenty of support and help out there. You know, obviously, if you really seriously feel you've got a problem, always go and see your GP. Always just go and get the help you need. Have a look at Alcohol Change UK. They've got lots of resources listed there. Never do this on your own. Just get some support, get some help, get some cheerleaders, and trust me, it is the best thing you will ever do. So have yourself a fantastically sober summer, even if it just starts right now. That's cool. Reminder, thesoberclub.com/events if you'd like to come to the Bash at the Beach. Also, my book, my memoir, comes out in October. I'm going to have to start telling you about that regularly, otherwise the publishers will absolutely nag me. They book up really early for bookshop dates. I had no idea, but because my last book came out in lockdown, which is a terrible time. So obviously didn't get to do anything. But this one, we've got a whole bunch of dates across the UK. I'm really looking forward to it and hoping that I can fill these venues with podcast listeners and Sober Club members and people who know me from this work, you know, as well as the kind of singing days. So it would be just great to see you. The book is called From Wham to Woo, A Life on the Mic. And that's my kind of memoir. It's a real blast through all of the fun stuff from the 80s and the early 90s. And then obviously coming up to date with many years on the radio and all the stuff I've been doing in more recent years as a Hay House author, as a coach, as a trainer, as founder of the Sober Club and all of that. So I really hope you'll enjoy the book, and it would be so great to see you at one of the events. So again, you'll find the whole list of the bookshops or the festivals under thesoberclub.com/events. So with all of that stuff coming up, hopefully I'm going to get to meet loads of podcast listeners, because everyone always says, oh, you do all your events in the south, and has been a little bit like that really, but that's going to change. I'll get to see some of you, I hope. So have yourself a great week. Always reach out if you're struggling. You're very welcome to message me, and of course message me if you're not struggling, if you're feeling fantastic. I'd love to hear that too. See you next time. Thank you for listening to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by the Sober Club. Please rate and review. And if you want support, accountability and inspiration, and you want to live your best life without the booze, check out thesoberclub.com.